So we are starting our last unit of the semester. My, how it has flown by. And we're going to look at the Greeks. So we've looked at the Middle East, we've looked at South Asia, we've looked at East Asia, and now we are looking at Europe. Before we get to the classical civilizations of Athens and Sparta, we want to look at what preceded those city-states in terms of this region. So we're again looking at Europe. We are in the Mediterranean. So what part of the Mediterranean are we in? Eastern or Western? Correct. Correcto, kiddos. We are in the Eastern Mediterranean. We're going to look at the Minoans, which are really the earliest civilization in the Eastern Mediterranean. And when we're looking at the Mediterranean, we obviously, this probably goes without saying, but I need to say it anyways. We're looking at people living on islands, archipelagos, that are going to have to be really adept at sailing. So these civilizations, these early ones, like the Minoans, and you can see here, a lot of books say 1450. So 2000 to 1450, 1400, the Minoans, really impressive mariners. And then the early Greeks are going to be termed the Mycenaeans. And those again are going to take place, the Minoans and Mycenaeans, before we get to Athens and Sparta and Peloponnesian War and Persian Greek wars. And we're not going to look at those wars right now, but again, I do want to give you a sense that there are important civilizations that precede the Greeks. And if we look at Asia Minor here, also we know Asia Minor as Turkey, also known as Anatolia. We want to also, and not shown on this map, there's a really important civilization. And again, we're not going to be able to see it on this map, but here, the Phoenicians. And like the Minoans, the Phoenicians are great mariners, seafarers. And you can see just how influential they are in the Mediterranean. And they are going to go to war against the Greeks and Mycenaeans. But what we want to know about the Phoenicians is they establish this really strong colony here in Tunisia, what is modern day Tunisia, Carthage. Carthage isn't going to come into play so much in this unit, but when we look at Rome, Rome is going to have some epic battles, the Punic Wars with Carthage. So, I mean, this gives us a better view of the Mediterranean. We were here in this Eastern Mediterranean with this map here, looking more specifically at the Minoans and Mycenaeans and Anatolia. But again, we also want to be aware of the Phoenicians, Carthage, and number two. So number one, Carthage. Number two, and you should put this in your cultural spice group, the Phoenician alphabet. So important. Why? Why is the Phoenician alphabet so important? Friends, kiddos, Pengyomen, because it is going to influence what? Subsequent alphabet. Greek alphabet. So the Phoenician alphabet is going to influence the Greek alphabet, that obviously is going to influence a lot of European alphabets. Okay, so really important, the Phoenician alphabet for Greek alphabet, and then European languages as well. Okay, so again, we wanted to start here with the Minoans. You don't need to know specifics about the civilization, except that they are really good at sailing. You maybe remember them from 7th grade, the Minotaur, and the labyrinth and whatnot. Okay, let's go to post-Mycenaean Greece and the advent. If you look at here, so we've already seen this region on the first map, right? But now we see it in the context of city-states. And look at the numerous city-states. So here we go, back to environmental, what? Determinism. And we've got C, which is going to impact these peoples because many of them are going to be very, again, adept at sailing. But here on the mainlands here, we see all of these city-states. And we're going to refer to them in Greece in terms of a polis. Okay? Why are there so many of these city-states that are dotting this territory? Environmental determinism. Answer. Usually correct answer. Again, all of these early civilizations that are so important and influential occur because of advantageous environmental circumstances. And it's interesting. It's going to be different here in Greece. You see all of these city-states. Why? Because the land is hilly. And a lot of these city-states are going to be on the top of these hills. So there's valleys, rural kind of areas for farming and whatnot. But then there's a city probably up higher that's better protected. So we're going to, because of the rocky, rugged, hilly, mountainy terrain, we're going to have city-states, or again, Greek polis. And it's interesting. So these city-states would think of themselves, they would be more loyal to their own city-state or polis than they would to this idea of being Greek. Did they consider themselves Greek? Yes. But their culture was more tied into the city-state than an overall kind of overarching Greek culture. So that's really, really important. Something else that is super important with city-states. This is important, kids, okay? Important alert, important alert. City-states are competitive. And competition is good and bad. It's bad when you're, in a competitive area and you lose. But what does competition make you do as an individual? It makes you practice. It makes you want to do better. It makes you want to win. And it really spurs these city-states to be innovative. I think Etta was just disagreeing with something I said about competition in city-states. But anyways, if you look at city-states, they are going to be more competitive. There's going to be more conflict. There is going to be war. But if you look at technology, it does historically lead these city-states to produce remarkable technology because of this competition. We're going to see this in Europe. European states are going to be competitive, and that's going to drive innovation and this urge to be powerful and victorious. We're going to see this in Italian city-states during the Renaissance. So it's interesting what this arrangement of city-states does with competition and innovation. Okay, so really, really important environmental determinism that is going on here in Greece. Let's see, let's go to the next slide. So now let's get to kind of the more classical civilization. Actually, one more thing. I do want to say that this Mediterranean and the sailing and the diffusion and the trade, it's cosmopolitan. It's a cosmopolitan region, international trades going on. People are connecting because of commerce. And it's a more international culture going on in the Mediterranean. So that's important. And international culture leads to syncretism. These are two important words for world history: cosmopolitan, international, and syncretism, blending of cultures. So you're also going to see a blending of cultures because there's this exchange and interaction among peoples of the Mediterranean and the Middle East. And arguably, actually not arguably, the most competitive city-states of Greece are Athens and Sparta. And these are the classical polises that are going to be juxtaposed and compared, because Sparta and Athens have very different cultures and civilizations. So if we look at Sparta, it's going to evolve because it needs food, and it's going to conquer an area to its west, Messina, and there's lots of grain, and basically they need that food source. They take that region, but the people of that region outpopulate them, we think, historians, 10-1. And so Sparta had to evolve in a militaristic way, trying to prevent this region, the people, Helots, from rebelling. So they develop a militaristic society. Boys are taken from their parents at a very young age, like 7, and trained to be these elite warriors. And it is a collective. When we talk about collectivism versus individualism last unit, Sparta is very much collectivism. You are doing what's good for Sparta. You're not doing what's best in your self-interest. In fact, they did not want people to leave Sparta and be enticed by other ideologies that might be dangerous to the well-being of Sparta, or let others in. They didn't want their citizens to learn other ideas that might be subversive to Sparta. So very militaristic. However, what's super interesting is in terms of women had much more freedom and power and individualism in Sparta than they did in Athens. Okay, and we'll talk about that shortly. But more authoritarian. There's no philosophy and literature that is going to be lauded like Athens. And when we look at Athens, we've got to look at the political kind of chronology, important leaders like Solon. Because when we look at Athens, we've got like oligarchy, we've got some tyrants that are taking over. But what we have, which is problematic, are people are going to take loans out from aristocratic wealthy people, and the loan basically says, if you don't pay this back, you are going to be enslaved. And many farmers were not able to pay these loans back and are enslaved. So you have a huge percentage of the population in Athens that are slaves, enslaved. And Solon is going to get rid of this system and free these farmers, which is really important. And then we have Cleisthenes, who is going to get rid of this tendency to go to oligarchy. Remember, oligarchy is powerful families, and be more democratic. The Council of 500, and it's interesting, this is direct democracy. The people of Athens are directly voting for what's in their interest. But when I say people, I'm only referring to males of property that are citizens. No women, no foreigners, no males that are poor and without property, no slaves, obviously. So a very small, actually, percentage of the population are involved in these democratic reforms, but they are democratic. And we looked at women in Sparta. Women in Athens are basically kept in their house all the time. And they are not very close to, we'll look at the relationship between husband and wife, but it's a very different dynamic than in Sparta. Okay, we've got much more to look at, but that's a start. Thank you.